Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And interesting show today. We're going to talk all NFL. We're going to talk about the halfway point of the season's upon us. What we've learned, what we know, and kind of process that information and see what we can parse out of it to get some advantage going into the second half of the season. The weekend sports, we've got the NBA draft coming up in a few days. We've got college football going. The Pac-12 is back. And the Masters this weekend. I am not a golf aficionado. I know very little about the game. I do watch it from time to time, but I usually don't wager on it. Hopefully we can have a golf expert on it at some point that will help us figure that all out for wagering and maybe help us find value there. But that's something for down the road. So let's do what we always do and start by updating my bankroll. And we're back in the winning ways, at least for 1 week. Starting bankroll was $456. We had the Ravens minus 1.5, and that was a winner. They won by 14 points. Plus $14 to the bankroll. Minus 1 on the closing line because the closing line was actually, Ravens plus 1. So we did not beat the closing line. And then we had the Raiders money line, and that was a win. A very close game there. Plus $15 to the bankroll. Or a plus 1 on that one. We had the money line to minus 105, and I believe it closed at minus 125 at some places. So that is considered beating the closing line on a money line. And then finally we had the Saints over against the Bucs. I think it was 48 points. And the Saints did their part by scoring 38, but it was 50.5. The Saints did their part by scoring 38, but the Bucs only scored 3 points. And so that was a loser for us, minus $15. And 0, the line we got was the closing line, so 0 for that. So if you do the math, that's a gain of $14 to the bankroll. Our new bankroll is $470 going forward, and our bet size, dividing by 30, as we always do, because we try to remain selective, we're going to make our bet size $16 this week. And our count, for those of you not familiar with the count, we're keeping track of how many times we beat the closing line, and we get a plus 1 or a minus 1, depending on the situation, or 0. And it remains the same this week. We're still at plus 5, so we are beating the closing line more often than not because our count is above 0. So, a good week in the right direction. So let's take a step back and talk about the NFL. Now that we've officially passed the halfway point of the season. And what do we know about this season that we can maybe look a little deeper into and figure some things out? Scoring is up with an average total score around 50 points, between 50 and 51 points. Now, I've said on the show before that the average score at an NFL game was usually between 44 and 46 points, depending on the season. And this year being a very strange year, we have scoring much higher than that. And I might say it might be on pace to be a record season, depending how the last few months go. So that's, one thing we have to keep an eye on. Road teams have a winning record of 68, 65, and 1 so far this year. So we'll talk a little bit more about home versus road, but that's very unusual at this point in the season, having a winning record. Sometimes it's close to break even, but so We have 10 teams that have this is very interesting. 10 teams have a winning percentage above 666, which is, winning 2 out of every 3 games. And 10 teams have a losing percentage below 334, which is losing 2 out of every 3 games. So there's 12 teams in the middle. And those are the teams that are going to be vying for the last few playoff spots. I would dare to say that the 10 teams that are above 667 or better have already pretty much locked in their playoff spots, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. Now, there's 14 playoff spots this year. There's 7 in each conference instead of 6. So they did that to make, the later games in the year a little more meaningful. And, of course, the extra playoff revenue. With one exception, the Titans, who violated the bubble rules or the COVID regulations. COVID has not upset the schedule or injury report often, and there's an exception. The New England game was moved with a COVID positive test, but I honestly believe they kind of did that for TV, possible TV ratings. But there were other games that were moved, but they were basically all affected by the Titans' COVID activities. And so the NFL has done a pretty good job with the bubble protecting their players. There was a Cleveland positive test this week. And, it's very difficult without pure isolation to really limit that. And the NHL did an amazing job. They had no positive tests during their playoffs. But again, they were completely isolated during their playoff bubbles. So this is a much bigger endeavor, and they've done a pretty good job, I would have to say. But, I would say with the exception of Cam Newton and 23 players on the Titans testing positive, there hasn't been a whole lot of impact. There have been rumors of Matthew Stafford testing positive a couple of times, but apparently he hasn't missed much time at all. So now that we've noted those things, what can we learn? What have we learned? So here's another tidbit. Penalties are down. Been called a little more often in the last couple of weeks, but that's one of the reasons the scoring is up, is because penalties are down. I've noticed that a lot of the penalties that have been called in the last couple of weeks have been they're very tight on hits to the head. Anything that resembles a hit to the head is considered a penalty now. And I'm not sure that's reviewable at all. It's pretty much a judgment call. So they're calling those a lot. They've been calling a lot of unsportsmanlike penalties. But holding is way down. Holding on offense and defense is way down. And I've watched a lot of games and say, oh, that's a hold, that's a hold. I mean, games I have no betting interest in, and they're just not calling it. So you pretty much have got to really grab somebody with your claws in them or tackle somebody to get called for holding. It's got to be pretty egregious. So home field advantage is pretty much neutralized. We said that the visiting teams actually have a winning record in the league to date. I wouldn't say it's 100% neutralized. It's probably like 96% neutralized. I mean, teams still have to travel across the country to play away games. And that is, it's not easy. If you're chartering your own plane, you get away from all of the security screenings and the COVID testings and all that stuff. But it's still, a drag on the team. So it's, it's not completely neutralized, but it appears that even with, some fans in the stadium, like Dallas and Cleveland have allowed some fans in. Pittsburgh has allowed some fans in. I don't. There's really no. I mean, like there's the fake noise piped in, and that's about all there is. So the scoring increases have now been reflected in the totals, and even my model in the beginning of the season, my model was putting up, totals of 47 to 51 on a lot of games. And the totals that were posted were higher, and I would be betting the unders, and I lost on a lot of unders. The Cowboys particularly have been my devil this year with the totals. But the lesson here is usually the most value in the NFL is in the first few weeks of the season. And there are teams that are very undervalued in the market. There are totals that are very overvalued, undervalued in the market. And if you think you're getting, 3, 4 or more points on a spread or a total, that's the game you want to look at. That's where you're finding your value. The value is you're getting a better number than you think the sportsbook should be offering to you. I feel like those totals have, they're very well reflected in the lines, and they're also, even in my model, because you take recent performance as a certain percentage of your model in my case, and now it's reflected with those higher numbers. The good teams are really good and the bad teams are really bad. In my opinion, only the Jets are in pure tank mode. It appears, the Jets dismantled their team. They've decided to keep their coach. I really don't know how healthy Darnold is or if he's just a head case. You know what you're going to get with Joe Flacco, and at this point in his career, he's going to be average to below average quarterback. But there's 4 or 5 teams in each. Well, there's actually more in the NFC than the AFC, but I would say, the Texans, the Bengals, the Jets, right off the top of my head. And then, you could add the Chargers maybe, but the Chargers have been pretty competitive. And then the NFC, you have the whole NFC East, and then you've got the Vikings, and that's really about it. The Panthers are competitive. They're not out of a playoff spot, and they got McCaffrey back now. But there's about, there's 7 spots in each conference, and I would say probably 5 of them are locked up. The Bills, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Chiefs have definitely locked up their playoff spots. They've got to be high 90% to get in. The Packers are probably going to lock up the NFC North, excuse me. And then there's one team in the NFC East that's going to back into a playoff spot. But the fact that they're also bad in the NFC East is very good for the other teams in the NFC South and the NFC West, like Arizona, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Carolina, to get a wild card spot. So it's not a complete parity year. It's not one of those years where, 9 and 7 is going to win a division. The good teams are really good. But all the teams in the middle are bunched together really close. And that's where the parity comes in. Green Bay lost to Tampa Bay. They come back and have an outstanding game after that. Tampa Bay lost last week. Are they going to have an outstanding game this week? It's a parity league. Everybody has missteps along the way. So we try to project as best we can and realize that sometimes things go awry. Injuries happen. Speaking of injuries, this is still a quarterback-driven league, and without a top 15 quarterback, your team has no shot to compete in the playoffs. And that's still true. Look at the Cowboys without Dak Prescott. They have no Garrett Gilbert did a pretty amazing job last week, I thought, facing the Steelers, which you could argue are the best team in the league. They're definitely in the top 5. The fact that they were leading that game going into the fourth quarter is pretty amazing. But the fact that the Cowboys even scored a touchdown, the first touchdown in 3 games, you can see what a difference they are without Dak Prescott. And obviously Ezekiel Elliott is not the man to carry the load. The offensive line has issues, but he's had some fumble issues this year. It's a shame that those wide receivers are going to waste. And finally, I put this at the bottom. and I preach this all the time in all sports really, but in the NFL, coaching matters. I've seen a lot of games this year where coaches have made not optimal decisions in the second half in game management situations. Dan Quinn comes to mind. When to go for it, when to kick field goals, when to go for 2-point conversions. Last night in the fourth quarter, Mike Vrabel made some really bad time management issues with about between 10 minutes and 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And I don't know if he had already given up on the game or not, but that he's considered to be a very high IQ coach. And I was surprised at some of the play calls for him there. But pay attention to which coaches are coach. I mean, some coaches are coaching for their job. Other coaches, are coaching the long game. They might have their playoff spot sewn up, and they may want to rest players, and they, that's going to affect how they cover the spread. Green Bay is a 13-point favorite this week, and do they run in the second half if they're up 7 and run out the clock? Kick a field goal, they win by 10, and they don't cover. So pay attention to the coaches. See which coaches will punt when they're in the forward half of the field. See which coaches trust their kickers and don't trust their kickers. See which if a team gets a penalty after a touchdown and they can move the ball up to the 1-yard line on a 2-point conversion and they don't do that, they take the penalty on the kickoff. Pay attention to those things. They matter, and who's going to win a game. They matter in the totals, because if they're making suboptimal coaching decisions, it's going to affect the amount of points scored in the game down. So I can't stress that enough. It's something that very few people talk about. And, I'm not saying I know more than NFL coaches, because obviously I don't. But I do know what affects the final score and the outcome of a game. And these things do affect that. All right. So very interesting first half of the season. Very different from previous years. And I hope that was helpful. And I hope that you can use some of that information to make your bets going forward. The bookmakers get better at making lines in the second half of the season. So it gets harder and harder to find value. So every little bit helps, and hopefully that helps you a little bit. So let's move right into Week 10, and we're going to start with the Jaguars at the Packers at Lambeau. Packers minus 13.5, 49.5, and again the numbers in parentheses are my projections that I make from a spreadsheet I do every week, and take of them what you will, but that's how I figure out which way I like to go on a game, or delve deeper into which games I think have value. So I have the Packers at 17.46 point favorite and 50.79 on the total. So I do like the Packers here. Don't sleep on the Jaguars running back. He had an awesome game last week. His name escapes me at the moment, but if you're a fantasy player, you might want to give him a start. Like I said just a moment ago, the Packers have Aaron Jones back. And, as long as they have Devontae Adams on the field with Aaron Rodgers, that's going to free up the other receivers. So either Devontae Adams is going to have a big game, or the ball's just going to get spread all over the field if they decide to double Devontae Adams. So like the Packers here. I don't like this cover situation. I would love them at 10 points. There's no way it's going near that. So I'll probably just pass on that game. Eagles and the Giants. The Giants can get within a half a game of first place in the NFC East, believe it or not, as bad as they've been, if they can beat the Eagles at home. Plus 3, 44.5. I have it at plus 4.67, 43.9. Miles Sanders is back for the Eagles. Eagles is one of those teams that has just been decimated by injury. Carson Wentz can only do so much. The Giants have been getting better and better. I think this team is playing for their coach. It's like a situation in Miami. Miami turned their team around. They had a couple of, I would say bad seasons, but they had some big wins, and the team morale plays a lot in how fast you can turn a franchise around. And the Giants, I think, are getting there. And I think this is going to be a close game, but my model says leans towards the Eagles. And the total is really close, so I'm going to stay away from that. I don't like betting on bad teams, although I do once in a while. I hold my nose and do that. The Bucs at the Panthers, and Panthers +6, 50.5. Now, everybody knows the narrative. Tom Brady, after a loss, is like, over 80% wins, and I'm sure that has an effect on the line here. My model says +6.53, so it does slightly lean toward the Bucs. 53 is the total, so it likes the over. And you've got Christian McCaffrey back, and you've got what should be. I would double check the weather in Carolina. There may be remnants of a storm. But it should not be unseasonable, so we'll have to see about that total. But it's too close for me to want to wager on that game. Texans at the Browns. Browns -3.5, 47.5. I have the Browns at -5.22, 52.22. So my model loves the over in this game. I like the over in this game. My model likes the Browns in this game. I feel like the Browns, they need this win. They need to keep pace. Should be a good day in Cleveland. I like them to get the job done here. The Texans really have nothing to play for at this point. They are riding out with an interim coach. I feel bad for Deshaun Watson. I mean, he did get paid, but he's having a really tough year. This team just fell apart, and they're going to be in rebuilding mode. They're like in the same boat as the Falcons. They took, that franchise as far as it could go under their leadership, and now they're kind of both in a free fall. Although the Falcons have been able to eke out a couple wins. The DC Potato Skins at the Lions currently is 4.5, no total posted. I have it at -2.64, 50.54, and that my model includes Matthew Stafford playing, Alex Smith playing. So I don't really know why the total's off the board here. Galladay is out, and the tight end for Detroit, and Hawkinson has a toe issue. He's questionable. Washington has played teams close. They don't have a great record, but this is a game they could cover. I feel like it could be very competitive because the Lions are going to lion, and I like the 4.5 here. It's definitely one of those hold your nose games, but I don't know if you're going to get closing line value on that game. I think you'll get closing line value on the Browns at -3.5, but I don't know. But I do like Washington in this situation. So we'll see. Bills at Cardinals. Cardinals -2.5 at home. 56.5 is the total. That's pretty high. -1.28. So my model leans towards the Bills. 53.87. So my opinion on this game is that if the Cardinals are going to win this game, this is going to be one of those Bills trap games where, like the Titans game, where they gave up 40 points, but they only scored 13 or 16. I feel like if you like the Cardinals here, that the under is the play at 56.5. Nobody likes to bet the under. It's no fun to bet the under, right? But that's the highest total on the board. And obviously, the Bills are coming off 44 points. If you think they're going to score 44 points every week, it's not going to happen. But this could be a 28-28, 28-31 type of game. I mean, that would be the expected. But Don't sleep on the Cardinals' defense. If they can, they have actually a pretty decent secondary, and if they can stop the Bills' running game, Zach Moss seems to have picked up the slack. Then it's all down to how they can cover the Bills' receivers. Chargers at the Dolphins. Tyrod versus Tua. Dolphins minus 1.5, 48.5. I have the Dolphins at minus 6.9, 51.52. And this is where my model and my thought process differ. And I'm a firm believer. I know there's big numbers people and there's big qualitative handicapping people that go by the look and the smell test and reading for facts and reports and whatnot. Tua has been great. The Dolphins are playing great. Every rookie quarterback has bad games. It doesn't matter new or old quarterbacks. You can go back to Elway in Montana and Marino. You can go. I mean, Mahomes barely played his rookie year. Obviously Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield. They have bad games. And Tua's due to have a bad game, and he's also been considered, in somewhat of an injury risk. The last couple of years he was in college, and I hope he's healed, and I don't want him to get hurt, but if he can make it through the season without any injury, I would be surprised. I'm basing that on how often he was injured in his years in college. So we'll see if he can continue to hold up to that. And the Chargers have a pretty decent defense. They just have not been able to overcome teams' adjustments in the second half. It seems like they have great first halves, and then So on paper, yes, this looks like a must-bet on the Miami side. My feeling is not that strong on it. My heart is not that strong into that play. And my model really likes the over here, but that's going to depend on how many points the Chargers can score with Tyrod. You're looking at them getting 20 to 24 points. So you're going to need 28 out of the Dolphins. All right, let's keep going. Broncos at the Raiders, AFC West. Raiders minus 4 at home, 50.5. I have it at minus 6.83, 49.39. So my model likes the Raiders minus 4. I would rather take the 3.5 with the Browns, but if it goes down to 3.5, I would consider that. The Raiders are playing good. The Broncos are inconsistent, but they'll be up for a division. They've been very competitive in the division, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. Nothing on the total. 49ers at Saints, minus 9.5, 49. I have it at minus 10.19, 51.41. My model does have Michael Thomas playing. He hasn't been playing, I think, more for behavioral or emotional reasons than physical reasons. I think the team has had a falling out with him. I'm reading the tea leaves here, but we'll see how much he gets involved in the offense. But the numbers are too close for me to want to wager on this game. It does lean towards the over. Seahawks and Rams, I think this will be a game worth watching. Minus 1.5, 54.5. 0.45 I have, so it's a virtual coin flip. 50.37, so my model really likes the under here. And the Rams defense is very good. The Seahawks have managed to score over 30 points a game. So in order for this to go under, they're going to have to hold the Seahawks to under 25 points, which basically nobody has been able to do. So I'm going to stay away from that. And I think this is a winnable game for the Rams, but, Chris Carson is still out as far as we know, although DJ Dallas came in and did a wonderful job. So it should be a good game. I'm looking forward to watching that one. Bengals at the Steelers. Steelers minus 7, 45.5. I have the Steelers at minus 13.74, 46.02. Now, obviously, the Steelers are going to lose a game at some point. I don't think this is the week. I'm going to take the Steelers -7 while I can still get it. I think as we get closer to Sunday, this goes up. The Bengals defense is poo-poo. And their offense, the question on the total is, do you think the Bengals offense can score on Pittsburgh? So if the Joe Mixon is likely out, if they can score 20 points against the Steelers, then you might like the over here. But I like the Steelers -7. After 7, I don't think at 7.5, I think I would stay away. And then Sunday night, we got the Ravens at the Patriots. Patriots getting 7 at home. Did you think you would see the Patriots getting 7 at home, right after Tom Brady left? I mean, boy, oh boy, how the mighty have fallen. 43.5 is the total. I have the Ravens at plus 7.68, 44.02. The Ravens are playing well. The Patriots are almost out of it. They may be in tank mode if Belichick has decided to move into the, to look forward to next year or not, if he's given up on Cam Newton. If you see one of the other quarterbacks come in the game, that's a sure sign that he's waving the white flag. But there's not enough value on the line here to place a wager on this game, in my opinion. So I don't know if I'm really into that one, but we'll see. On Monday night, we have, you could consider another clunker with the Vikings and the Bears. Bears getting 3, although it's juiced pretty heavy. 43 is the total, and I have this game as a virtual coin flip, 43.29. So my model in this situation, it would say take the Bears all day. You're getting 3 points. I don't like it at -120 or 125. If it's -110, yeah, for sure. Take the Bears and the 3 points. That's a situation where you're holding your nose and betting on a stinky team. Obviously the Bears have a winning record and their defense is studly. But their offense, they have injuries at running back, and their offense cannot find consistency. Neither quarterback can seem to get the passing game going well enough for them to be comfortably ahead. So we'll see where that ends up. And I doubt that the Bears will go to 3.5, but if it gets to 3 even, 3 at -110, that's probably as good as you're going to get, in my opinion. So we'll see if I'm right or I'm wrong, because I'm wrong sometimes on which way the lines are going to move. So that's it for the week in NFL, and let's wrap it up with my picks, and let's see what the board says. So I'm going to hold my nose and take Washington, plus 4.5, -106 against the Lions on Sunday. That's at the local DraftKings book. I know it's down at Pinnacle right now, but it's a pretty good number, I think, for what I expect to be a competitive game. And then I'm going to take the Browns -3.5, -107. Basically, I was getting lower juice on the spread than the total. I like the over there as well. Must-win game for the Browns. I like them to get the job done this week. And then I'm going to take the Steelers -7, -110. I really love getting this 6.5 instead of the 7, but I think this is going to go to 7.5 or 8 before it's all said and done. Get the Steelers -7 if you can get it now. And no totals this week, so we'll see how that works out for me. 2 home favorites and a road dog. So that's our show for today. I hope you got some good NFL tidbits out of it. Be back next week with another episode. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to play the outro music for you, and let's get some winners, everybody. Take care.